Hey everybody, welcome back to VDP1. So today we're going to continue the series on MiSTer FPGA DE10 Nano project, and I got a fun, exciting video for you guys today because I am putting the MiSTer FPGA Sega Saturn core up against real hardware in a preview comparison. Now I don't normally do these things until the core is finished, but I found Burning Rangers to be so incredibly close from real hardware to the core, I figured we'd have a fun time and kind of compare and contrast them. This is the intro to the first mission. I'm not quite telling you what the footage is yet, but for the rest of the video I will demarcate whether it's MiSTer FPGA or Sega Saturn, but SRG320 has done an absolutely incredible job of getting this core to the place it is today, where even though it is not done, I can put these things side by side and show you just how incredibly close both of these sources really are. Now we're going to run that same intro area sequence again, and you'll see at least here all of the cycles are accurate because all of the screen transitions happen at the exact same time. Obviously the gameplay is different across sources, but you would be hard pressed to understand whether or not you're looking at MiSTer FPGA or Sega Saturn if I put them side by side, one against the other. The color rendition and everything just looks absolutely incredible, and the gameplay, frame rate, and everything else that would be associated with these being side by side is almost indistinguishable to the human eye. Even if you're the #1 fan of Burning Rangers, I think for the most part you could totally be fooled. So we're going to go area from area, and you'll see right here this is Sega Saturn footage. Look at the flame effects, look at all of the textures, how the polygons call in and out, and then we're going to go through the same area on MiSTer FPGA, and you will see how close that image adheres here. And of course one is going to be a digital signal, one is obviously going to be RGB, but all of the colors, all of the representations of the textures, everything here, it would be almost impossible for you to detect which source I am playing if I didn't give you that little Mr. Coon in the bottom left hand corner. But let's pop over to real Sega Saturn hardware again and just watch the textures, watch how those polygons clip in and out of the corners of the screen, and then when we go back to the MiSTer FPGA capture, I want you to watch for the exact same thing, because like I've said in previous videos, Burning Rangers pretty much pushes the Sega Saturn hardware to its absolute technical limit with pretty much every visual effect that VDP1 and VDP2 can supply to it, including a lot of pseudo real-time lighting effects with different colors on the floor and on the wall depending on what's going on screen at once. So just take a look at the flames here, take a look at that little burst effect with your actual firefighting weapon, and just kind of get a good sense of what they look like. We're going to transition over to the MiSTer FPGA source in just a moment. So pay attention to what all those effects look like, and we'll go back to the exact same spot with the exact same explosion, because the nice thing is it is pretty easy to run comparisons here when you see things happening side by side. We just need to get that explosion actually to happen, and I will say that the flames look absolutely incredible here, maybe sharper than the actual real hardware source, but that's just down to the HDMI out. But as we come into this room and you see those effects, you see the fire and all of the firefighting, once we actually get the camera to cooperate, it can be a little tricky in this game, you'll see that how close these two sources truly are. And I would say the flames maybe are too clean on the HDMI source, you don't get that analog blending, but otherwise honestly, again, these are like 99% the exact same image, and that is how good the core is doing right now. But let's go side by side again so you can take a look at the same section both places. Saturn on the left, MiSTer FPGA on the right. All of the polygon pop in, all of the culling seems to be like 99% there. In every situation there might be a stray polygon that culls in or out, but that could also be on the engine side because this is doing it in real time, so depending on which angle you come at a cutscene from or any sort of other angle, you can get slightly differing results in engine. There wouldn't be a difference between the core and the actual hardware. But again, the representation across both images looks to me to be identical. I really do think if you just handed somebody a controller that was familiar with this game, didn't show them the hardware it was running on, and said, is this Sega Saturn or is this MiSTer FPGA? In Burning Rangers, 9 out of 10 people would not be able to tell, and the one person that did get it right would probably just be down to a coin flip. But let's talk about audio. First I'm going to give you a Sega Saturn sample, and I'm going to give you the same section in MiSTer FPGA. Listen, and I'll be right back.
Cross that bridge and proceed through the door. Cross that bridge and proceed through the door.
So I'm sure you could easily tell there is an audio difference between the core and real hardware. The audio side of the core definitely still is getting buttoned up, so you can hear the difference there. But as we go through the same section, basically side by side again, it is just so impressive how close these two images truly are. All of the dithering effects or the pseudo-transparencies, and you'll see here once we go into the real-time lighting as well, everything just looks so incredibly close. SRG320 has done such a good job getting it to this point in time, because Burning Rangers is just one of the Sega Saturn's best games, and here on the core, it is performing extremely well, because we haven't even really talked about the frame rate yet. But if you pay attention to both sources, you can see that they are running at the exact same speed. You're getting the exact same frame rate out of the core that you would get out of real hardware. So as far as the performance side of actually executing that code in real time, it seems to be adhering one-to-one with real hardware. But of course, I don't have a graph on screen to show you. I go by feel. But popping back over to the Sega Saturn, we're going to run through the same area again. Watch these green particle effects. Watch everything that happens on screen as the doors open, as we fly around, the glow off of the jetpack. These are all really good examples of what you want to be looking for when you're actually trying to compare these two images, including this door opening here. And again, on real Sega Saturn hardware, this is just such a pretty game. I would definitely put it near the top of the best 3D games on the Sega Saturn. This still holds up today, and a lot of it is just down to the colorways and art style that the developers and artists at Sega chose when they actually made this. Now going back to the exact same area, but on the core, you'll see those particle effects there look extremely similar, and honestly they look a little bit smaller, but it might just be down to the camera angle. But as we jump across and basically do the exact same thing, again, if I wasn't indicating what the source was on screen, I do think most of you would be fooled. At the end of the video, there's going to be a test that I just label 1 and 2, and you can leave a comment down below and tell me which one you think is MiSTer FPGA and which one you think is real Sega Saturn hardware. But as that cutscene plays again, it plays out in the exact same way, in the exact same manner that it did on real hardware. But let's take a look at another section of the game, again on Sega Saturn hardware. When we get these explosions up here and we open up the door, all of those little letter boxes that come down at the exact same speed and at the exact same way that they do on the core. And that's something that I can sync up side by side in Resolve, frame to frame, and every single thing executes, at least in those areas, exactly one-to-one with the real hardware, which is always a good test. Cutscenes are an incredible way to compare a core against real hardware, because the game takes away control from the player and execute things in engine itself. Therefore, I know there aren't any variables. So you'll see here, we talk to this tech and it's going to basically rescue him, and we're going to be able to open the door behind him. And if for any reason you've never played Burning Rangers before, I really can't recommend this game enough. It is an absolute ton of fun. But let's pop over to the MiSTer FPGA capture, go through this elevator again, and you can see the same rescue in the same way. There is one polygon missing at the bottom left hand corner of the screen. I will point it out in just a moment. That is a difference between the core and real hardware, but that's the only difference I could find in its entirety. That one little polygon with a texture at the bottom left hand corner was there on real hardware, and it's missing here at MiSTer FPGA. But again, that could just be a weird thing that the game is actually doing in code, and it might not have anything to do with the core in and of itself. But again, side by side, just look at that color green, look at how it shines on the walls as we walk through here. This is as one-to-one as you can possibly get for a core that is still in active development. And that's what I really want to do, tie in and reference here. I am comparing something that's not even done to hardware that was done back in the mid-90s. So we're only going to see improvements as time goes on, but honestly, with Burning Rangers, MiSTer FPGA versus Sega Saturn, I don't really see many places where this could actually improve. This feels like almost completely done, and the little variables that do exist could be down to just random chance and not have anything to do with the core's code versus real Sega Saturn hardware. And I just love how this screen reflects off the walls and shows you where you're going, but still keeps you a little bit in the dark, pun very much intended. And it's a really fun graphical trick that the developers and artists at Sega instituted for Burning Rangers, and honestly it's coming across super well on the Core here, and all of the color reproduction is so accurate as well. That's what really makes a difference in a game like this. The colorways they chose are so unique, so vibrant, and so Burning Rangers that if they were not the same across both the MiSTer FPGA Core and the Sega Saturn hardware, you would definitely be bummed out. But you're going to see here, I am going to sync this next cutscene. That way we can get those bars coming in and out, and you will notice that the Core ends up running a little bit faster than real Sega Saturn hardware. But again, it could have just been the angle that we came at that switch from that basically just delayed things a frame or two. It's very hard to say in Burning Rangers exactly what should be happening, as this game likes to do different things at different times. But as far as the image quality, the textures, the polygons, the lighting across both sources, again, if I didn't put the logos down below, I really don't think anyone would have any idea what I was actually comparing. And you'll see there the direction in which we came at the switch could have affected that sync test. I'll have to run that a few more times in the background really to find out more. But here is your test. This is source 1. This is either MiSTer FPGA or real Sega Saturn hardware. So watch the polygon culling, watch the colors, watch the textures, watch everything you can in this image. Get a real good sense of it, because in about 10 seconds I'm going to put up source 2, and then you can compare that against this boss fight here. But again, it's a super fun boss fight, and the fact that it's a plant causing the fire is very strange and fun indeed. And this is source 2. Again, this is either MiSTer FPGA or real Sega Saturn hardware. So think about it, look at it, and leave me a comment down below, and you tell me, is number 1 MiSTer FPGA or Sega Saturn, and is number 2 MiSTer FPGA or Sega Saturn? Basically just write down below 1 Saturn or Core, 2 Saturn or Core, and we'll see whether or not people can actually tell the difference. I'm assuming on this one we're going to be down to complete luck and chance. But this is how close the Core is to real Sega Saturn hardware, at least in Burning Rangers. I know everyone loves a comparison test, but this is in no way, shape, or form a review. I'm just previewing a work in progress build because it seems like something fun to do. And if you have any requests to compare games moving forward, leave them down below and I'll see what I can do about them. But you should definitely be playing the Sega Saturn Core today, and you definitely need to play Burning Rangers. Try that, I'll see you guys. Bye bye.